Alright, it's time to start pulling this bullnose apart. So for those of you that don't know, I've had this truck for 7-8 years now. I got it when I was 18. It was a firewood truck. It has a dump that was originally under the stock bed. It was notched out for the stock bed. I ended up putting a flatbed on a couple of years ago, but since then this thing has just been problems. Basically, cab is so rotted out that this sits on the shift linkage just enough to take it out of park, and by not being all the way in park, it will not allow me to turn the engine over with a starter. So rather than fix the cab on this thing, I'm gonna pull this engine out. It's a 351 Windsor. It's got the electronic ignition in it, the DuraSpark. So I'm gonna take this out. It's gonna go in a 64.5 Mustang my father-in-law's had sitting in the woods for, I'd assume, decades. Last registration was 87. So we're gonna take the engine out of here, put it in there. I believe that car should have a C4. This has a C6 in it, which I must have burned up a clutch pack. So we're gonna pop the C6 apart too at some point, take a look at that, and basically I'm gonna get rid of this thing. I'm gonna give it to someone who can either make use of it or wants to scrap it. I don't care anymore. So we're gonna start working at this. Alright, while this thing's draining out, I'm going to take care of some other stuff. I just want to show you some things I noticed. So in here, can't zoom in, I got my wrong hand. See, that belt is almost all the way gone. But that there, the water pump is leaking. There's a new water pump. This thing was a pain in the ass, I tell you what. I had to have this thing torched out because a whole bunch of the bolts ended up snapping off when I took this thing out. So we're gonna have to take this pump off and reseal it too. Alright, I'm gonna start cutting away at some of these rubber hoses and whatnot. If you don't have trauma shears, go ahead and get some. They're like $3 at Harbor Freight. These things will cut through pretty much anything. So I spray both sides of the exhaust connectors here. So hopefully in a couple of minutes those will be penetrated enough for me to get some movement out of them. What I'm going to do is use some socket extensions with the ratchet down here below. And I'm going to just try to work it a little bit at a time, tighten it back up a little bit, going back and forth instead of trying to use an impact gun, just because it's so rusty under here. I don't want all this crap dropping in my eyes. Exactly as I expected, the nuts holding the exhaust on just round over, so I'm gonna cut it off. This is honestly, exhaust is the biggest waste of time working on anything this old. It's always gonna break or round off. I have never once had an exhaust bolt that didn't snap off or round off.